So this is very interesting. I haven't seen Ben Shapiro talk much about Tucker Carlson. As many of you will know, Tucker Carlson is a conservative-leaning commentator in America who peddles all kinds of anti-Israel, often subtly anti-Jewish and sometimes not so subtly, and has all kinds of factually inaccurate historians on that pervert a moral understanding of history and World War II and the right and wrongs around that. But anyway, Ben Shapiro was asked about him and his thoughts on this by Batya. On Batya, her name is Batya Ungar-Sargon. She has a show on News Nation. I want to show you what he says about this, because he says there's a whole debate on the right about, is it more important for us to be unified or for us to call out people who are saying immoral things? Because some say, no, you need to see the bigger picture. We have to take our fight to the progressive side. Ben Shapiro says, hold on, what's the point in being a political movement if you can't have values that you all stand by? Have a watch of this really important, fascinating clip. And I've got a lot more to say and some more clips to show you on the other side.
The vice president is very close with somebody who has been attacking you quite relentlessly for a few years now, Tucker Carlson. Speaking of Nazi insignia, Carlson has repeatedly hosted a historian who engages in World War II revision that, in my opinion, aims to portray the Nazis in a less villainous light, shall we say. Charlie Kirk and Megyn Kelly both talk about pressure to cut ties with Carlson. What's your take on the vice president's friendship with Tucker Carlson? Is it significant?
Going to police friendships between people. I will say that, once again, I think that when people make what are clearly ugly arguments, or when they hide behind guests in order to make ugly arguments without ever asking a single difficult question, or when they continue to use their platforms in order to promote nonsense, then I do think that people of good heart could condemn that. And that has nothing to do with friendship. I think that, we all have friends with whom we disagree and who we believe hold bad views. But if we're in the public sphere and we're speaking on public policy all the time and on ideas, then I'm not sure why that should grant some sort of blanket immunity to the criticism of the ideas. I mean, again, there are people in my company with whom I disagree, and we publicly will have those disagreements and air them. And Batya, you and I disagree on a number of things, and I'm sure at some point you've criticized my ideas. I'm sure I've criticized yours, and we're friendly. I mean, I don't really see why these two things are mutually exclusive. I think that there is a bit of a Mott and Bailey game that's going on, where people will refuse to condemn bad arguments, ugly arguments, morally specious arguments. And then when you say you're refusing to condemn those bad, morally specious arguments, and you really should, just because you're willing to express your opinion on everything, why not that? And then they retreat to the Bailey, which is, well, actually, you're just saying I don't want to be friends with. Yeah, I can't be friends. You can be friends with whomever you want. No one's saying that you can't have somebody over for dinner. What we are saying is it's kind of weirdly and oddly uncomfortable that you go silent on views when they are expressed by quote unquote friends, when that friend happens to be a public figure. Nobody's asking you to condemn your Uncle Jim for making a racist joke at the dinner table publicly. That's not what we're talking about here.
I think that is absolutely spot on. I do not understand why people are saying, well, I'm not going to denounce someone's character. That's a total straw man. No one's asking you to denounce someone's character. But I think that if you have a big platform and your friend has a big platform, and they're telling your coalition, your side of the divide, all kinds of things that are utterly immoral, you have a duty to, say, I disagree on this point, not I disavow this person. And this, as Ben is pointing out, there's this debate raging at the moment on the right. And I want to show you Xavier Durousseau, who I interviewed just the other day, where we spoke about this very issue, this debate and what's going on, because he's a conservative-leaning commentator who's very pro-Israel, and he had very similar views to Ben Shapiro on this. Let's have a watch of what he had to say. A quick update before we continue. I've got some big news for you. We've finally decided to bring JTV in person. I'm planning a speaking tour across America where I'll be talking about everything from the big issues the Jewish people and Israel face today to Judaism's deepest ideas, and of course, I'll be taking your questions. If you want me to come to your location, just click the Google form link below in the video description and I'll be in touch. Let's have a conversation. My question is around a debate that's happening on conservative circles online, where there's basically people like Matt Walsh and others who are saying, we just need to be unified. We need unity. People like Megyn Kelly as well. They're like, I'm not going to call out, people who have differing opinions, or let's say someone that's anti-Israel on the right, because we need to see the bigger picture. And then there are people like Ben Shapiro and others who are saying, what do you mean bigger picture? If we don't have a certain set of values that we can all agree upon, then what exactly are we as a movement? What are we doing? What's the point of us? What's your view on this whole debate that's growing on the right?
That's a great question. And it's something that I do actually think about a lot because there is a fine line between holding your peers accountable versus, demonizing people that are categorized together. And unfortunately, with us being a two-party system, we end up under this huge umbrella of like, are you left or are you right when there's clearly so much division that's happening in
Yeah.
between. But I think it's unrealistic that there's going to be this huge camaraderie of unity now in the right, because if it was going to happen, it would have been after Charlie Kirk's assassination, if we're going to be realistic. What I'm hoping is that the main reason that the right needs to essentially stick together in a left versus right capacity is who you're voting for. So it's like when it comes to election season, hopefully there's enough unity that we're able to choose a candidate that's going to not be extreme or choose a candidate that is going to encompass most of our at root values. And I do think it's important for us to have discourse even within the right. Otherwise, it just goes down this rabbit hole of more and more people become extreme. You have to call out people like, because here's the thing is I grew up, or not grew up, but in my new conservative life, I have essentially grown up watching Tucker Carlson is what it feels like. He was one of the original people that I was watching on Fox News when I started becoming more open to, right-wing media. So it's painful for me personally to see him go and try to downplay Hamas being a terrorist organization and for him platforming so many people that are aggressively anti-Semitic and aggressively hateful. I think things like that are 100% worth calling out. When you are at the point that you are uplifting and trying to humanize literal terrorists, genocidal terrorists, I think at that point, you have to call each other out. I'm not saying demonize their character. I'm not saying that we have to shred every single element of their credibility about every single thing that they say, unless it gets to that point. But there is a point where you have to be willing to call it out. Otherwise, we just look like this ginormous cult, which is something I'm not signing up to be in. I'm more than willing and have extensively called out people who are on the right side. And I think that is important to do. But I also think it is an unfair expectation for certain people to attack their friends. I know Brett Cooper just made a video recently that she's getting a lot of flack for, where basically she said she supports Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro. And she has a personal relationship with both of them. So on a human level, you have to understand that it's a bit unfair to her to try to make her pick a side. However, you also have to realize, speaking to Brett on this, it's like you can't be upset at your audience for expecting you to do that when our entire careers are built on being transparent about how we feel about various issues and various people. So it's a double-edged sword for sure, but I hope that gives a good context on the issue.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And I think people should be able to make distinctions between not denouncing a person or their character and saying I disagree with this point of view, and I don't see why there should be anything wrong with that. I don't understand why, let's say you have two big influencers, let's say on the right, or big activists on the right, and they have two very strongly opposing views, and people will want to know, do you agree with this person? I don't see why there's anything wrong with someone saying, look, we're great friends and we have a disagreement on this, and why people seem to conflate being able to express that, which I think influencers have a responsibility to their audience, given their impact, to give moral clarity on issues, whilst also they can state at the same time, I'm not denouncing someone's personality or cancelling them or boycotting them or anything like that. So I just think we should just be sensible about all of this. So there you go. I don't believe politics should just be about your team winning, your side winning, if it means compromising what you're trying to win. And in my mind, turning your back on something like the Jewish people is a value that people should not cross if they care about morality in politics. Before you go, you have to check out the trailer for our new documentary on Moshiach, the Jewish belief about the Messiah, what he will do, how the world will look after his coming, and why his arrival is close. And if you want to watch the full thing, just click the link below in the video description. For thousands of years, the Jewish people have carried a promise that history is not a random cycle, that suffering and darkness and exile are not the end of the story, that one day the world will be redeemed and the Messiah, the Moshiach in Hebrew, will come. But what does that actually mean? Who is Moshiach? When will he come? How will we know he's real? Why would God design a world that waits so long for redemption in the first place? And what will life feel like after he comes? With AI and machines beginning to replace work, maybe we're already catching a glimpse. But then what will we do with our days? The prophets spoke of that world long ago. In this groundbreaking JTV Plus documentary, we uncover the truth about the Jewish vision of the Messiah, who he is, why it matters, and why his coming could be closer than you think. Join us as we reveal the truth about history's most anticipated figure. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.